Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to Cabinet. And before we start proceedings, I'd just like to firstly welcome David Northey, our new Section 151 officer. Congratulations, welcome to post. And just ask people if they can stun or silence their mobile phones and ensure that through the proceedings, we are live on webcast, so just bear in mind, please don't be distracted or speak when the microphone is on, but remember to turn it off, please, when you finish speaking. So move to agenda item 1 for apologies. Not had any apologies received, so full house, good. Agenda item 2, declarations of interests. Anyone? No? Okay. Agenda item 3, the minutes have been circulated in front of you. Minutes from the last meeting is on the 8th of September. They seem correct? Great. Do you need a vote on that or anything? Right, happy to... James, happy to support, and then seconded by Councillor Drew.
Lovely.
Thank you. All in favour? Those against? 0. Okay. Questions from the public? No questions received from the public. And agenda item 5, Chair's urgent business. There's nothing from the Chair. So agenda item 6, we move to leaders' announcements, which is a verbal update from myself. And it's fair to say that we have been extremely busy over the last few months tackling these completely unprecedented budget challenges and caused by factors that are well beyond our control on the international and national climate. Despite all of this, we have not been diverted from delivering upon our ambitions and plans for Plymouth, the ones that we announced the first week of July. And just to remind people, they were creating more higher value jobs for our city, delivering good quality green homes, delivering decent education and access to first class health and care. In fact, because of the cost of living crisis and the surging fuel costs, then I believe it's more than ever more important to be delivering upon these ambitions. So I am absolutely delighted that last week the government announced that we were one of 38 cities in consideration for an investment zone. This is completely amplifies our ambition for higher value jobs in Plymouth, and we will be shortly submitting a formal expression of interest for our city centre and waterfront to be an investment zone in the government's first wave of those. But it's worth reminding ourselves that through Plymouth and South West Devon Freeport, we already have successful work with partners in the public and private sector, both within the city and the county, to deliver thousands of highly skilled jobs and business growth. That's £35 million of government funding, and we think through the pipeline it will create to the tune of 3,500 jobs across the city and beyond over the next few years. So the announcement for the investment zone will catapult our ambitions to revive the city centre as well as drive much needed housing to be built. We have a massive amount of unrealised potential here for higher value jobs that pay well beyond the average medium wage. So just sort of bringing that to life a bit, I attended the Plymouth Area Business Council, so did Councillor Dreen, so did Councillor Shea a few weeks ago. I'm delighted to see presentations and hear from companies such as Plessy that are increasing the amount of jobs and investment within the city. A few days later, if I recall it in the right sequence, we again saw M-Subs who are increasing their investment and profile within the city. These are massively advanced and manufacturing, engineering, technical companies, and by having that sort of incubation and cluster here, we need to encourage it to become a snowball effect through better transportation, through better taxation and planning, more streamlined support services for businesses. So we are also running, we're about to launch actually the port strategy. So we talked about it a few weeks ago, but now the hard work begins, where we bring 4 statutory partners together and other new investors to ensure that our 12 miles of city coastline delivers much higher capacity in terms of port capacity and in terms of actually, I'd say, also enhancing the environmental aspects that we have here. We've got pre-construction design for a new look Armada Way, which will modernise the landscaping and provide a better place for shopping, playing and relaxing. It is a key element of ongoing regeneration within the city centre. And what I would ask is that we communicate that. When we as members see the plans, we're sort of massively excited by them. There's been some comment within the press and sort of feedback from the community. And I think when people see and understand the plans, they'll be massively inspired like we are by the forthcoming work. I won't say too much about it, but really excited that the British Art Show will be arriving in Plymouth almost within hours, I think. But Councillor Patel will expand more when it comes to his update. This is a really massive occasion and is a real celebration of lots and lots of contemporary art that's going on in Britain at the moment. And by bringing these types of influential exhibitions and media profile to the city, again, it demonstrates that we can deliver sustainable, high-value jobs to the city. Art is not just a leisure pursuit. I see it very much as an economic mission to deliver higher-value jobs. So just touching briefly upon healthcare, I know Councillor Mahoney will talk in more detail. But we've made massive progress on the ambitious plans for the West End Health Hub. Following approval of the business case, we have continued to work with NHS Devon to secure national funding. A key issue in our health system remains the need to make sure that people can leave hospital in a timely way. We've been working with partners to implement a new out-of-hospital services to help people leave acute settings. As you know, the short-term care centre opened at the end of May, offering 24 beds to support hospital discharge. Just turning briefly to our commitment to securing decent education within Plymouth. It's great to see that we have had a decent set of exam results that show actually continued improvement across the city. Some really good improvements in primary and secondary schools attainment this year, and it builds upon the progress that we made last year. As many of you know, we've got 59% now of primary schools have met the expected standards at Key Stage 2. We are committed to driving that up much more over the next decade. But it is the first time that Plymouth's outcome is better than South West's regional average, which is 57, and the national average 58. So that's really, really heartening. Our secondary schools are also achieving better results. Consolidating on progress last year, this year's 2022 outcomes of Attainment 8 and Progress 8 were historically the best in Plymouth since the accountability measures were introduced in 2014. The momentum of improvement in education is clearly established in Plymouth, and there is cause for optimism for our vision of a decent education in Plymouth, though we acknowledge that there is a lot to go in terms of that mission. So we have continued in terms of progress to deliver more green homes for our city. We've been progressing the development of a council-owned site in King's Temerton for up to 70 affordable net zero carbon homes. And we have been working also in partnership with Plymouth Community Homes, PCH, many of you know, on plans for 140 affordable and energy efficient homes in the Mill Bay regeneration area. We've also agreed a new Armed Forces Covenant which commits to supporting serving and retired service personnel to find suitable accommodation. This is just a taste of our progress. We aim to keep the momentum up despite the financial challenges we are dealing with, and we will continue to work hard and unleash Plymouth's full potential. Our Ocean City is a magnificent city with untapped potential, which deserves our outward ambition for higher value jobs and international standard transport connectivity. I think I will speak just really briefly around the Levelling Up Fund. As you know, we've pitched for just shy of £20 million from central government. We've done that during changes within government, and it's worth saying that the council officers, also the elected politicians, have worked massively hard, I think, behind the scenes to advocate on behalf of our city. The bid is towards beautifying around Tyneside and the Lido there. It's to widen port capacity at Mill Bay, and then of course the Innovation Centre in Devonport. But what we won't find out yet, but I'd just like to thank everyone that's been involved. The last few days there has been sort of serious pressure behind the scenes to push Plymouth's. We've been selling the council and selling the city to government ministers up in Birmingham, and we'll continue to do so. But we expect to hear back on that over the next few weeks. But thank you to everyone that's been involved in doing that. That concludes my announcements. I probably will now go from left to right, actually, and we'll have cabinet member updates. Councillor Sher.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'd just like to say welcome to David Northey, who's taken over as our 151 officer. Welcome. Over the last period, it's been really, really busy. There have been a number of really good initiatives running to bolster the council, its strength and its efficiency in the way that it moves forward and does its business. And these business improvements are really, really important. Once again, it's nice to hear about the public realm improvements and see the pictures and follow that journey through. It's really doing well. I'm pleased, and the council that has the lead for it is really doing a good job there. Moving on from that, now that we are a free port and we've just had the investment zone announced, I've noticed that there are a lot of exciting and positive SWOT analysis going on at the moment. And I'm now beginning to get a large number of businesses from outside of Plymouth contacting me with regards to what it means and what we can do and how they can get involved. So it's a really positive time at the moment. Okay, thank you very much, Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Sher. Councillor Sher. Councillor Wakeham, any update? I can't see. It is now.
It's gone off again. The grassed areas in general, I think it'll be amazing. And, I just want to congratulate the team who have put this together. So thank you for that. Also, as usual, I want to thank the teams in my portfolio because we are literally working so hard around the city. A lot of areas that haven't been cleared for a very, very long time are now being cleared. And of course, we've got the additional machinery, which does help us. Some of them work really so hard and they're really conscientious. And this is fantastic. And this is what I want to encourage. So that's why I go out with them now and again, just to give them that perhaps extra little push. Not that I need to, but it's just great to see them working so hard. So thank you, Leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wakeham. Councillor Dreen.
Thank you, Leader. Just a very quick update from the highways team. The MMA lining works, painting of the roads with the white lines, etc., is continuing, and we're also prioritising pedestrian crossings and safety areas as well. We've completed North Cross Roundabout, you probably saw. We're halfway through Manadon Roundabout, and after that it'll be going to Marsh Mills Roundabout. These 3 locations, we are only able to do it on a Sunday night at the theoretical quietest time to cause least disruption. So that's why people may have thought that we've only done a part of the job, not the full job. The new help points that we have across the city, in the city centre and on the Barbican, are up and running. Last week there was one used in a situation, and there was a lady in distress, and everything worked really well on that. I just wanted to share with Cabinet members, whilst we were away, I had the opportunity to meet the Right Honourable Anne-Marie Trevelyan, the new Secretary of State for Transport. It was an aviation forum that I actually went to, but afterwards I took the opportunity to introduce myself and ask her to visit the city, in particular thinking of Forda Valley opening in the future. She said yes. Obviously we don't have any dates yet, and we will need to check diaries at the closer opportunity, but the invitation was given, and she theoretically accepted, subject to her diary. I also spoke to the new Rail Minister, Kevin Foster, MP, discussing Dawlish, South West connections, but most importantly, the Tavistock to Plymouth line. We have already recently submitted the outline business case that will be coming to them at some point shortly when they're able to review it. And I just reiterated to him that it's mainly Tavistock to Bere Alston to connect what we already have, not a complete new line all the way through, so we had that understanding. And whilst I was there, I happened to bump into the Chief Executive of Heathrow Airport, have a chat with him, Mr. John Holland Kay, and I was very pleased to hear that they have recognised regional connectivity, how important it is, and they actually have a process now for lower domestic flights for their landing fees there, which should help all regions across the country. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Drain. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, Leader. Whilst away at conference, I had the opportunity to meet with Lee Rowley MP, the newly appointed Housing Minister, and we spent about 10 minutes talking about investment zones and how that can work alongside our climate change work in the city. I invited him to Plymouth to have further conversations on this and how we can showcase the great opportunity to have an investment zone, but also interlink that with our climate change work in the city. So I'm looking forward to speaking with him again and his team in further detail about how we can have this come to fruition. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stoner. Councillor Dr Mahoney.
Thank you, Leader. 3 quick announcements. I was very pleased to be present and open the new health hub at Mount Gold, which we're working in conjunction with Age Concern at the William and Patricia Benton Centre. This is an important way for our residents to access services and be signposted to various help regarding welfare and housing issues via partners across the city. Hubs are also important in reducing people's isolation and loneliness. And also enabling residents to obtain perhaps healthcare advice that may reduce pressures on the health service at the moment, which is very important, and improve their health and well-being. Age Concern already provide facilities on this site for veterans, befriending services and social events. So that is a great addition to our list of health and well-being hubs that operate with partners across the city. The second announcement is that there is a health and social care recruitment event on the 14th of October at the Future Inn between 10 and 7. This involves UHP, Live Well, adult social care, voluntary sector, domiciliary care providers, and I gather that interviews for people who wish to apply for vacant positions will actually take place or can take place on the day. And training and education is also part of the offer that will be available for people who turn up in trying to make this area of work have some sort of career progression and formal training. It is a pop-in, but also people can book via Eventbrite should they wish to do so. Third announcement is that a care hotel will be opening again at the end of this month to help particularly UHP, Darriford Hospital, with winter pressures. This was very successful last year in freeing up beds for patients who really don't need acute health care and are better catered for in a more pleasant surroundings in a health hotel. And of course, if we can free up some beds, it reduces the pressure on A&E and the ambulance service. So that is opening up again at the end of this month. So that concludes my announcements, Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Mahoney. Councillor Carlo.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to highlight the hard work of Tina Brinkworth and her team with the recent Launchpad Live. It was Plymouth's largest ever Future Careers event. It was held and it was had 60 businesses and organisations there, plus over 3,000 students attended from year 7 onwards. In fact, there was only one school that didn't attend out of the whole of Plymouth. It's been incredibly successful for them. It was working in conjunction with the YMCA. And I think, you know, obviously next year's going to be bigger and better, but I think just to highlight the amazing work that they all did for that.
Thank you. And if that one school can be urged to attend in the future, it'll be very, very helpful. I hope something
hopefully
very,
that
very important was
announcement
happening that day. That
yeah.
they were,
Hopefully
so
that
they didn't
announcement
promote
might urge them a little bit.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Leader. I've got an announcement relating to a piece of technology called PropTech, which I mentioned back in the spring when we initially got the funding, but I'm just giving you an update on where we're at and announcing some more money. So I'll just run through that if that's okay. So I'd like to make an announcement about the leading edge work we are doing in Plymouth in response to the government and our own ambitions to digitise the planning system, making it more open, transparent and accessible to all communities and local people. Plymouth, in a joint bid with the South Hams and West Devon, which is our joint local plan area, was one of only 28 projects across the country to receive funding from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities from what's called the PropTech Engagement Fund. In fact, we had the highest award in the country. We had £285,000 has been received to support a new digital engagement platform, which I'm sure we've all seen, helping us develop innovative approaches to better understand the way our neighbourhoods work and allow us to improve our public reporting across the joint local plan area. In July this year, we launched the My Place, My Views engagement platform. This asks residents to tell us what they think about their neighbourhoods and the facilities and services available to them. They complete a short survey and place a pin on an interactive map to share their views. The consultation has been open over the summer across the joint local plan area and is now entering its last week, ending on the 17th of October. So if any of you want to advertise that on your various social media channels, that would be great. So far, we have had over 1,300 comments, which has been praised by government officials as one of the most successful pilots in the country to date. So well done to the team for making that so engaging and pushing that out so far and wide. However, I'm pleased to announce that following this success, the government has approached us to bid for a further £235,000. We are one of only 3 joint local planning authorities who've been invited to bid nationally to support the further development and deployment of new and ambitious digital engagement tools. If successful, this will enable us to continue to expand our consultation arrangements, making them quicker, easier and more efficient for residents and businesses alike. And ultimately, this will help us improve the visibility and transparency of the future local plans that we will be needing to prepare soon as we look towards Plymouth of 2050 and beyond. So when we have to look at the joint local plan again, we've got these tools in place to engage with people in a modern and interactive way. So that's my announcement. Thank you, Luda.
Thank you so much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Papatel.
Good afternoon, Leader. I have 4 announcements to make. First of all, on the box just celebrated its 2nd anniversary. During that time, it's been shut for 6 months with the pandemic, and then followed a very restricted audience. However, we have still managed to get 350,000 visitors through the door, and over half of these were from Plymouth. Well done to the team there for actually doing the marketing and getting everyone out. As you know, the investment from the box came through the Lottery Heritage Fund, and also a big investment by the City Council and the Arts Council. So, and all of these have been out and visited the box to see what their money's doing, and I'm glad to report that every one of them was really pleased with what the box is doing there. Our facilities and storage for the archive stuff is sort of out of this world. It's all the art material is now in one climate controlled room, and we're seeing more and more numbers actually accessing the archives, which is one of the things we wanted to do. The next plan now is to get schools and what have you doing heritage projects there. So I'm really pleased to say that the box is really doing well. We've had some fantastic exhibitions there, and we're just about to see another one opening tomorrow, which is my second announcement. British Art Show 9 launches tomorrow night, and will be here with us through till December. We're really only 4 places in the country got to have this year, and it only happens every 4 years. So it's a really big exhibition. It's being shown across 4 venues: the Box, Carts, Mirrors, and the Levinsky Gallery in the city. And information can be found at, as soon as I find the link, madeinplymouth.co.uk / British Art Show 9, or BAS 9. 6 artists that are displaying there are Turner Prize nominees, and 3 artists are actually Turner Prize winners. So some really good stuff there across all the venues. And I think, you know, the marketing has started. It's getting really good response, and I think we can get a really fantastic number of people through visiting the arts venues. Third announcement is the community economic development stuff that we're doing in, I briefly touched upon it at one of our planning meetings. We're now talking to 3 or 4 community organisations to see how we can help them become sustainable and start delivering in their own communities without the council having to get in there and prop them up. We'll brief you further on this as time goes on. And the last announcement is on the night bus, which is coming online from this Saturday. This is to get clubbers back home safely. There are 3 routes. Basically, route 1 they all start off at Derry's Cross. The first route goes via Devonport, St Udo, Erniesettle, Whitley, Southway, Crown Hill, Feveril and Mutley. The second route, St Jude's, Alexandra Road, Dipson, Embankment, Woodford, Chadderwood, Ridgeway, all the way to Catdown. Route 4 does Mutley, Higher and Lower Compton, Deer Park, Egg-Buckland, Liam, Estover, Derriford, Woolwell, Crown Hill, Manadon, Ham and North Prospect. So we're covering just about the whole city. It can be booked online in advance, so you can make your plans before you even go out. There's a small charge attached of £7, which is a lot cheaper than a taxi, but you know you'll get it if you're booked in advance, as opposed to waiting in a long queue. In terms of security, the staff on board will be wearing body cams, so everything will be captured. That's for the protection of the bus, as well as protection of the passengers, and also to stop any antisocial behaviour. And the service has been made available through funding from the Home Office in a joint venture between us, the University of Plymouth. So really good announcement and for the safety of our clubgoers. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patel. Excellent. Okay. Agenda item 8. We're now going to look at the scrutiny from the Scrutiny Management Board, the response to the scrutiny recommendations on the vis-a-vis the draft Child Poverty Action Plan. We've got Councillor Chris Pemberthy, Chair of Scrutiny Management Board, with us, haven't we? Hi, Chris. Do you want to sort of pitch in and you know, speak to the item essentially, and then I think the cabinet member will respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. And we did this in an informal Scrutiny Management Board meeting because it didn't fit in our scheduled timetables in order for this to come to the cabinet today, and we were very keen that we didn't delay the process. So this wasn't a public hearing; it was a private hearing, and I'm sure you'll bear with us on that. In general, we were really supportive. We think it's really important that child poverty is something that the council addresses. It isn't a little thing that sits in a corner by itself. And as I know you'll be hearing later when you talk about cost of living, this is a cross-cutting issue. And we welcome the opportunity for scrutiny to have a look at the overarching action plan As I said, we are supportive of it. There were some specific areas where comments were made, for example, that child poverty, you need to follow trends rather than one-off years. So COVID will have made a difference because of incomes increasing to the very poorest. The cost of living will have the reverse effect. So trends are more important than one-off years, but it is important that we keep on working on this because child poverty levels in the city are too high, and in some parts of the city we know we need to do more. So we were supportive there. Various members did raise specific issues, but obviously those have been discussed, I know, at the Child Poverty Working Group, which I'm lucky enough to sit on, having been one of its founder members with former Councillor Samantha Leaves back, I think, 10 years ago. So one of the old timers on this. I think, as I said, we are supportive. We do want to see this going forward. We acknowledge it is cross-cutting, and obviously one of the recommendations that doesn't go to you because it's for us is we have agreed that we will be asking questions when people come in front of us during normal scrutiny about child poverty, even if it isn't billed as a child poverty issue. And that won't be just at management board, it will be at any of the 4 panels, because each of the themes within the plan reflects pretty widely one of the scrutiny panels. So that falls very nicely for us. But over the course of 3 years, as well as those drop-ins, we will also be in each panel looking at how the work to address child poverty is being done, not just only on short-term fixes, but on long-term actions as well, in order that scrutiny can support the work that the Cabinet Member and cross-party Cabinet Advisory Group are doing. This might not be the last time you see someone from scrutiny wanting to talk to Cabinet about child poverty in the next 3 years as we seek to support work to tackle it. Thanks, Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Pemberley. And no, I mean, thank you for bringing that sort of the whole council approach, the whole council scrutiny approach to it, because I think, obviously it's such a fundamental issue. As you say, the implications run right across every service and every channel of funding that we have. So I'll ask Councillor Smith, do you want to respond as Cabinet Member?
Yeah, thanks, Leader, and thank you, Chris, for coming this afternoon. I know that you take this really seriously, which is great, and I know that we agree on that and recognise together that this is a really central policy. It's great that the working group has been in existence for 10 years now, and that must make this the 3rd action plan, or maybe even the 4th or 5th, who knows, because I'm not sure what the earlier frequencies were. But I think what we do here by having that 3-year focus that allows us to drill down into specific issues means that we do get to keep tabs on ourselves and make sure that we are watching those trends change. And you're absolutely right that we do want to look at trends, and the fact that we look at data regularly enables us to do that as well. Cabinet members will have seen the supplementary papers, so I don't think Chris didn't go through each and every one, so I don't think I'll go through each and every one. But I think I welcome what Chris has said about scrutiny, taking this seriously in terms of having it as an agenda item regularly. I think that's going to enable the council as a whole to keep delivering on tackling child poverty. I think what I would just like to draw our attention to is I think one of the challenges we've got to do with an action plan is find a balance as well. So the one point I will make is one of the recommendations from scrutiny was to enable flexibility within the plan. The plan itself needs to be less flexible because otherwise we can't look at measures and making sure that we're delivering on things. However, the existence of the Child Poverty Action Group or Working Group enables us to bring things to agendas as situations impact the city on an ongoing basis. So my commitment as chair of that group is to, keep that agenda open. I would just respectfully request that that's things that are approached to me before a meeting so that we can actually factor that in and ensure we've got the right officers present and the right information in people's packs. So flexibility is inbuilt within the existence of this group as far as I'm concerned, and that's certainly how I intend on chairing it going forward as well. And the other point just finally is talking about the partnership element and wanting to just make sure that partnership working continues. I think most of what we've heard this afternoon from other colleagues is about partnership, and I think it's one of the things we do really well in this city is we work with our partners outside of the council to make sure that we deliver the best outcomes for Plymouth. We do that regularly through the Child Poverty Working Group. One of the pillars is looking specifically at partnership. And just to say, it was out of that partnership meeting came the enabled me to do the fact finding on setting up a cost of living group as well. So that partnership does provide regular opportunities for politicians and voluntary sector and public sector personnel to be talking to each other on a regular basis. So that partnership working is fundamental to making this happen and to delivering. And I think it's worth just saying thank you on record for those partners across the city who are working with us to deliver this. And as you will have noticed, when we come to look at the action plan as a whole, this year's title is Breaking the Cycle of Poverty, and that was something that as a group we all agreed really strongly with. Chris was in that meeting as well. If we don't break the cycle, it's going to carry on. That's how circles work, isn't it? So we need to stop that circle and actually enable these children to experience living outside of poverty themselves, and then as they become parents in the future, continue living in that way in the future. And so this plan is looking at that holistic opportunity for children and young people and their families to see themselves out of that cycle, and we are all committed to helping deliver that with them and for them. So I think that's all I'll say. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Pemberton, is there anything you'd like to come back on in terms of the responding to the response, if you like?
Yeah, I think one of the points we did make on partnership was actually getting the NHS more on board. All the stuff we've been doing with dentistry, we all know that the stumbling block has been predominantly at NHS England level around dental provision for children in the city. And so I think the push there was around some of those partners where we would want more from them. And it's not that the Peninsula Dental School isn't helping, for example, because they are, and we've been doing lots of work with them. But sometimes we need some of our partners at a broader level to engage. And so to achieve what we really want to achieve, we need to bring more people on board. And dental, I know, is still in the plan. It's been in the plan for a number of years, and we keep on hitting the same hurdles. And that means we've got far too many children on the waiting list. We have far too many extractions under anaesthetic. And so those are areas which are sort of beyond the Plymouth system to work at, and why I think we felt it important that partnership thing was emphasised again, because sometimes we need the full might of Plymouth to be trying to shift a partner, and actually we might need other parts of the local government sort of family from elsewhere in the country as well, because if it's happening here, it's going to be happening in other places. But we, I think, are probably the only council in the country that has made child poverty something that we keep on looking at like this, and that has cross-party member driving it through a cabinet advisory group. I don't think that's replicated anywhere, and we should be making the most of that strength to try and make sure that Plymouth gets what Plymouth needs from national government. And for example, children's teeth extractions is something that I know as a whole council we want to see sorted, and the answer there is beyond Plymouth. So some of the stuff on partnership wasn't a criticism at all of our fantastic partnerships locally. It was the fact that we do need some more help if we're going to really achieve things. And I'm sure Rob Nelder could come and give you a very long and detailed explanation as to why poor dental health in children can massively impact on adults. We've had it in our group, in the child poverty group, and it really is staggering. And those are the areas where we do need more. So I picked up on a very small hobby horse, but it's one which can actually help break cycles enormously, both from health and self-belief and all sorts of other reasons. Just one small thing could make a massive difference.
Thanks, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for clarifying that. And I was actually supposed to say something about that, and because it didn't come up in your previous comments, I didn't mention it. So, so obviously our response has said that we are working with partners, but specifically what you've alluded to in the fact that it is a cross-party piece of work, the dentist bit, and we've obviously had that cross-party emotional notice earlier on in the year as well. So actually what we're confident in and actually pleased about is that by having that measure and outcome being waiting list and all of those things within the plan, that forces us as a council to, or gives each of the scrutiny bodies that we have that opportunity to stick it on their agendas. So the fact that you've said through scrutiny you want to do that is really welcome. We've also got the Health and Wellbeing Board. Corporate parents actually will no doubt have this on their agenda, as well as the working group. So I think actually we're in agreement here that dentistry for young people in the city is a pressing issue, and keeping it on the action plan for the next 3 years is key, and involving those national bodies like NHS England is the key way to us delivering as a city, because they are, like you say, that stumbling block that prevents us from seeing those waiting lists from going down. So I think we're pretty much in agreement on that. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thank you so much. Councillor Pemberthe, yeah, thank you to you and the management board for looking at this and taking time. And I think, you know, again, it sort of shows the benefits of cross-party working, and also getting sort of scrutiny in front of decision making, and not doing scrutiny as a kind of a retrospective add-on. So, you know, it just amplifies the fact how seriously we all take the scrutiny process, and you know, you don't get good executive decisions without good scrutiny and without good questioning and good challenging. So thank you so much. If you can transmit our thanks back to the team on your board as well, Chris, that will be most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. And if you'll excuse me, I'll catch up with the rest of your meeting on catch up later. I've actually got something else I need to go off to now.
Yeah, you are forgiven. See you later. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so we do need a vote. And so therefore the recommendation is that Cabinet consider comments from the Scrutiny Management Board and approves the prepared response. So we all in agreement with the response. Okay. Thank you. Under item 9 then, following up, is to actually agree the plan, I guess. So Child Poverty Action Plan 22 to 2025. I will at this point hand over again to Councillor Rebecca Smith.
Thank you, Leader. So I'm delighted to bring this new 3-year plan to Cabinet. Back in July, you, Councillor Bingley, launched Plymouth's Future, a clear statement which set out our opportunity and our delivery plan, with a focus of ensuring that everybody living in the city has access to decent education, a well-paid job, a good home, as well as first-class health and care. A significant part of this is ensuring that every child in the city is inspired, gets the same chances and opportunities, and that they and their families, where relevant, are supported to break the cycle of poverty, as I outlined in the previous item. So colleagues, this new Child Poverty Action Plan in front of you sets out how we hope to achieve this, and together with our partners, equip the city to deliver on that. I'm sure we're all agreed that breaking that poverty cycle is vital if we want to see those life chances of our residents increased. For me, that poverty cycle is part of the reason why I'm in politics. So to be able to actually name that plan, breaking the cycle of child poverty, for me was really important. And you know, never thought 20 years ago that I'd see that in a document that I was delivering to you today. We can't do this on our own, but I'm very pleased to say that our ambitions are shared by our partners in the commercial and voluntary sectors, as well as other public sector bodies in the city. And the work of the Child Poverty Action Plan is backed wholeheartedly by those groups. They are part of the group, they provide funding for this work across the city, and we really couldn't do it without them. Our multi-agency partnership approaches are recognised, as we all know, as a key strength in Plymouth. So this plan has been the culmination of cross-party working via the Cabinet Advisory Working Group, which was begun with the previous portfolio holder, and has been scrutinised, as we've just heard, by the Management Scrutiny Board, and we've appreciated and acknowledged their recommendations. So today, this item is to ask you to support the plan, which I'm sure will provide opportunities for all Plymouth children to achieve their full potential. But we have to agree for it to go forward. You've had the plan in a page, and you've had the full detail looking at the outcomes and things. Some of those outcomes and how we look at measuring those will be drilled into further by the working group, but that's our job. You just get to see the results as we come back to share them with you in the future. So my request, Leader, is that the Cabinet might support this plan and take it forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith, and my hope is that they will. So sorry, Councillor Patel,
Sorry, Leader,
Hang
I've
on.
got a question before we go on to.
a question. Yeah. Okay.
So, my question is that how are we going to deal with the cost of living crisis along with the Child Poverty Action Plan? Because I think the two are very linked.
Councillor Smith.
Great, thank you. So as I mentioned in the previous item, through one of the partnership meetings that we had where we actually took this action plan and road tested it with our partners, I used that opportunity of being in a meeting with a load of key stakeholders in the city to ask them about how they work together and how they would imagine working together under the cost of living. And it was from that point that the cost of living task force was born back in July. I felt it was really important that we obviously need an engine to deal with the cost of living more broadly in the city, which is what that task force is. But within the Child Poverty Action Plan, cost of living will come into that. But we also have these pillars that are designed to bring to break that cycle of poverty for families who've been in that position for longer than we think is right for us. We want to break that. We want to change that. So for me, the two groups being slightly separate is enabling us to keep the focus on children and their families who are already experiencing poverty before the cost of living crisis happens, so that we don't lose sight of that. But then it will obviously meld in with the wider piece of work on cost of living. And as Councillor Pemberthy and I have both been discussing, we need that flexibility so that cost of living piece can also come back in to the child poverty working group as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Stoneman, did you have a question? Okay. Okay, so we move to approve the structure, content and outcomes of the draft Child Poverty Action Plan 2022 to 2025. Those in agreement? Against? No? Carried. Thank you. Cost of living update. This will be an update that, again, I'll hand over to Councillor Smith to present the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So we've put this as a kind of substantive item on the agenda today, given its pressing need and the fact that it is something that, you know, everybody around the whole country is concerned about. We are in the process of putting together the package of items that we're going to be delivering as a city, but in the meantime, things have been going on behind the scenes to get us to that place. So Ruth Harrell is here to fill us in a little bit more, but I'll just say a few words to kickstart, if I may. So the task force was set up to bring together a wide membership of key stakeholders, including names that will be familiar to you: Plymouth Energy Community, Citizens Advice, Food Plymouth, Improving Lives Plymouth, Transforming Plymouth Together, which is a collective of churches in the city, and Plymouth Argyle Community Trust, as well as a whole host of other organisations. As we all know, they are experts in delivering alleviation to specific aspects of poverty. So poverty is, you can split it down into subsections, and each of those community groups work within one of those sectors. But we wanted to be joined up in our thinking and in our conversations and ultimately in our delivery of support across the city. We've seen in the past that somehow we get thrown money at us and it's not always delivered in a way that with hindsight might have been the most constructive. So we thought by bringing this task force together and getting everybody regularly round a table, we build on that partnership work that's already happened, that we developed during COVID-19, and we put in place an integrated approach to food, finance and energy advice. So, for example, Citizens Advice have been providing income maximisation and debt advice to people needing to use food aid. We want to see more of that cross-working, and once you're in a room with each other talking about it, it enables that to happen much better. So Ruth is developing with me a cost of living framework, which we will be putting with we've got our next task force meeting next week, and she's going to be presenting that to Cabinet today so that you've seen that in advance of what we're doing next week. The task force will, though, be focusing on taking action and not just analysing the problem. We know there's a problem. The task force is about solving it and about ensuring that whatever is going on in the bigger picture around the country, people in Plymouth have the best opportunity of getting access. Now, it's not the council's responsibility to solve the cost of living crisis for citizens, but we need to be leading in how we ensure that support is delivered to as many people as possible. For example, in a citywide approach to warm spaces and food provision around Christmas and that sort of thing. The Other thing that has come out of the cost of living task force, though, is also an opportunity to just revisit some of how we're doing this stuff already. So what we're hoping is that we might be able to simplify and provide a consistent and sustainable approach to food support, so that actually, again, where food is coming into the city through organisations such as FareShare, who have a warehouse in the city, that we can have an alliance of food aid providers and a simple referral process to make sure that everybody is delivering that in a similar way as possible. Now, again, we don't want to be heavy-handed in that. That would be something that people work with and together on, but we just need to make it really easy for people to access support and to do that in as cohesive a way as possible, rather than having lots of different solutions dotted all over the place. So, Ruth, I hope I haven't just stolen your thunder. The final thing I was just going to mention is we're super aware of how important communicating this is to the city. So I'm meeting tomorrow to put together the final kind of strategy plan on what we do in terms of enabling people to know more about what we're doing. But we've already got an online hub that is providing people with that information, which Ruth will refer to, I'm sure, in a moment. So Ruth, I will hand over to you to fill the team in about what's going on.
Lovely, thank you very much. We sent around some slides. I won't go through all of those one by one. I'll provide a little bit of a précis today, if that's helpful. So as Councillor Smith has said, you know, we are acting at the moment to try to support people who are at risk because of the cost of living issues that we're facing. And that those who are at risk are very, very broad range of people across the city. Households in low incomes, obviously, are clearly one of those that are likely to be at risk. Some of the key other categories include single person households, older people, young people setting out, but also people with disabilities, including significant mental health issues. And also, of course, households where there's been an unexpected event where perhaps normally they may be able to cope, maybe a significant issue at the moment. And there are multiple impacts of these kinds of issues. So obviously, being in a low income is a strong determinant of future health and well-being, but it also creates a lot of relatively short-term issues. So even if we're just concerned with this over the winter, short-term issues can then have a lasting impact on finances, especially, for example, if debts are incurred with high interest rates. And there's, of course, significant impacts on health and well-being. In the short term, for people who already have particular illnesses, they will be much higher at risk if they're living in cold homes, of admission to hospital, of exacerbation of underlying conditions, etc. And of course, health issues caused by cold and damp homes can impact our children, which is so important at the moment. So there are a whole range of reasons in why we do need to be concerned about this, and we are acting as a city. So the aims of the cost of living task force, first of all, it is about working together. As Councillor Smith said, there are a large number of organisations of community and voluntary sector across the city who are working for the benefit of their communities. And what we want to do is make sure that we're helping to coordinate that so that the range of services are available to the people that need them. It needs to be joined up multi-agency offer, no wrong front doors. So people that are in need get linked into all of those things that they need at the time. And of course, communication is a key part of that. So making sure that the messages are out there to promote awareness and to improve access, particularly around signposting to services. Councillor Smith has mentioned we have a cost of living hub on our website. So that provides a link into the offers that are currently available. And of course, Plymouth as a city, we already have a history of joined up system leadership approach to tackling many of its challenges, especially these more complex challenges. And so many of those approaches are already in place to some extent. What we're needing to do is ramp up to deal with the volume of issues that we're likely to see, particularly over the winter. And so it's really important that we are looking at all working together and making sure that we are joining up those offers. The cost of living framework itself loosely falls into three categories, the themes of that. The first one is about managing finances. So that's around the understanding of and the access to financial products. And that actually includes those people who are eligible for benefits, but who may not be receiving them. It includes support with bank accounts, affordable repayment plans, but it also is about making sure people are aware of the high risks of high interest loans and making sure that people like loan charts, for example, don't get a foothold in the city. The second section is managing at home, and that really includes housing, heating and eating. So fairly obvious category there. So fuel poverty being a considerable issue. How are we going to make sure that people do have access to no cost, low cost and affordable healthy food in moments of crisis and in the longer term? And also a lot of issues in the city, of course, around poorer quality housing. So how are people supported with that? Because that's one of those factors that will really exacerbate the impact of fuel price increases. And the third one of the themes is around supporting mental health and well-being. We need to really recognise the impact of this on people's mental health and well-being, make sure that the signposting is there to appropriate services, and helping to try to support people in choices that are a little healthier, at least within the limitations of their situation. We know that people are facing some really difficult choices. So what can we do to help in making those choices ones that are likely to add to their health in the longer run? And of course, each one of those has to have a graduated response. So there is a need for urgent support. So places like our soup runs, our food banks, that kind of urgent crisis support is absolutely needed. But of course, we also want that next tier, which is targeting to households that are at risk of financial hardship, are struggling, but are still at the point where perhaps some slightly different offers might be able to help them in getting back on their feet. And of course, there's also then the resilience. So that sort of early prevention approach. How can we help people who may be concerned, who are worried about it? Are the preventative things that we can do to support them at the moment? And that really has been part of business as usual for quite some time for many of our partners around the city. So we have a number of work streams that link very closely to those three themes, but also include a work stream around communication, because that is, of course, so important. And of course, there are a number of enabling work streams that we're already doing across the city, and we are trying to bring all of those people together, those groups together, to make sure that that whole offer across the city is being linked in together. So some of the emerging areas and a couple of the themes that might be of interest. So obviously signposting is really key, and sharing that information. Collaboration around things like the household support fund. So we have had a household support fund for 2 cycles already, and we are approaching the third phase of that at the moment. And that provides some funding to support some of the organisations in getting support out to communities, as well as providing direct support to some families, some people, households across the city. But we're also looking at things like warm spaces, and Councillor Smith will be looking at developing a plan which will be communicated out shortly. That is about, linking in and looking at those range of spaces across the city that might already be warm. So to save people from having to heat their own places and their own spaces, are there alternative places that people can go to, and making sure that people are aware of it, and that's published and people can access those. We're also, of course, looking at things like what employers can offer their staff. So we've had a wellbeing at work approach across the city for some years now, originating from Thrive Plymouth. That includes things within Plymouth City Council, such as wellbeing champions. You can signpost to resources and listen to people's worries and concerns. We have things like employee assistance program to support employees who may be struggling. And we're also doing financial management and mental wellbeing workshops at the moment. And we are going to be looking to encourage other employers across the city, those who are part of the wellbeing at work approach, and also many, many others, to be thinking about what can they be doing to support their staff through these difficult times. And there's some key resources, and I would just like to mention a couple of resources here. One is the Citizens Advice. Plymouth has a benefits check online, so if you just Google or any other search engine for that comes up, and it's also available on our cost of living pod pages. There is a website called moneyhelper.org.uk that includes calculators for budgeting and all sorts of advice on how to manage finances. We also have a service which is called Quell, which is QWELL, which is an online, free, safe and anonymous mental health support for adults, which we have available across the city, and we're encouraging people to use. So lots of work is going on. We are working really hard to coordinate this, to make sure it's communicated out, to identify any gaps, and to make sure that across the city we're all working together for the same purpose. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Harrell. Any questions to Ruth? Councillor Snowman.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work on this as well. It's really, really good to see. My one question is in regards to the at-risk age group at the age 18 to 24. Does that include students who come to the city to go to our 3 universities? And if so, what communication is the council having with the 3 universities in the city to help students through the cost of living crisis?
Thank you. Yes, those categories are quite generic. They're not specific to Plymouth, but as you say, in that 18 to 24 age group, will include some students. Some of which, I mean, many of our students in the city come from Plymouth in the first place. But yes, we are working with the 3 universities to understand what support that they are offering to their students. And they, as I'm sure you're aware, the universities are very good at providing that additional support for students. They have a strong history of doing that, particularly around mental health support, finance support, and housing support. So yes, they are providing that. I can't give you details of what they're providing, but they certainly are providing that and looking at what they need to offer to their students in the coming months.
Thank you. Quick question for me. In terms of, we've seen in the media there's lots of scams and fraud related to some of the advice or click on links, etc. Are you sort of synergised with our fraud prevention team and that in terms of comms, there's a healthy health warning, if you like, around sort of websites that lure you to upload bank details and the rest of it?
Yes, we are. Our trading standards team tend to lead on that for us, and there are a range of resources there around scam busters. And you probably see that we do push out notifications when we get those on social media as well. But you're absolutely right; it is something that we are concerned about over the coming months. I don't know whether Councillor Smith, I didn't know whether you wanted to add anything to that one. I know that was an area of interest for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a good illustration of how we'll make sure that whatever comms we're doing is joining all of those things up. I'm assuming it's on the hub. I haven't checked every single link, but we'll make sure that it's there. And I think, I mean, the one thing on the communications piece, if I can slightly hijack this question, is to say within that framework, those references to the hub as a starting point, but also Quell and all those free services that either we are offering or other organisations are offering. You know, as cabinet members, we should be communicating those to our residents and encouraging the rest of our group to. And I'm hopeful that any Labour councillors that might be watching this at a later date, if Councillor Pemberthy comes back on, will actually do the same, because there's no point in reinventing the wheel when you're in a crisis point. It's about actually just talking more about things that are already going on and then seeing what needs bubble up alongside. So I think that's a really good point, just to double check and sense check that that's in there. But I've got a meeting tomorrow, so it will be on that agenda.
Thank you. I know you're meeting with comms tomorrow, so yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, anyone else question on that? Councillor Patel.
Hi, Ruth. There was some great work going on pre-COVID on the loan shark, and I know certainly in my neighbourhood we had 1 or 2 really good examples of loan sharks that were taken out and exploiting single-parent families there. I don't know what happened to that team, because COVID sort of stopped everything happening, and I haven't seen the loan shark team again or any leaflets and what have you from them to publicise their services. So I'll be talking to them. I think it was run by Birmingham Council because they had the Home Office funding to do that.
Yes, yeah, we certainly are. As I say, trading standards is, one of our teams are the main link to that. They did the Scam Busters campaign, etc., that you'll be aware of. So, yeah, we will make sure that's all joined up.
So, Councillor Smith.
It's also just worth highlighting that actually one of the key indicators on the Child Poverty Action Plan is around loan sharks as well. So Dave Monk, who is the lead on the Loan Sharks programme, which confusingly is badged Birmingham City Council, but is nationwide. They very kindly fund it. I think he is key to this. He and I have met, and we are continuing to ensure that that is a message that gets driven out. And again, we will make sure that all of those dots are linked up. Sometimes these conversations just help you double check that I think we've done it already, but I'm just going to go away and double check. So.
Thank you. And just to emphasise, it is loan shark prevention that we're working on. Okay, right. Thank you so much for that. So Is there anything we need to do in terms of recommending? Do we need to recommend the presentation and the work of the cost of living update? So we're just noting it. Okay, thank you. So noted, without objections?
Yep.
Noted. You have to be careful in politics. Okay, agenda item 11, Finance Monitoring Report Month 5. Over to Councillor Shea.
Thank you, Leader. I've got the duty to report month 5 finance monitoring report to the Cabinet. Can I just emphasise here that this is the revenue budget, not capital budgets. And for ease, I've rounded up and rounded down a few figures. Right, this report sets out the revenue monitoring position for the Council forecast to the end of the financial year 22-23 at August period 5. We're now reporting an overspend of 6.56 million. Last time we reported it was 8.7 million. Okay, so as I said, this position would improve, and it has by just over £2 million in the last month. And that's down with huge thanks to all the staff that have been working really hard on their approach and to get us to where we are at the moment. Okay, this is really, really good. Okay, as stated previously, we, like all households and local authorities across the country, are experiencing considerable inflationary pressure in the economy and generally, especially in respect to fuel and pay. The current position here includes £6 million of non-controllable costs. 3.3 of those relates to energy price inflation, and the details are set out in the report. Following the Chancellor's mini-budget on the 23rd of September, and at the time of writing, it is considered prudent to reduce the outturn forecast by £1 million from the previous 4.3 million. This will be confirmed once the detail of the government support is made public. We also have the impact of the COVID-19 legacy costs in adult and social care and the number of people requiring emergency bed and breakfast accommodation across the city. And as I reported last month, we have developed an in-year recovery plan covering all areas from fees and charges to reserves and contingencies. We have accounted for £7.7 million in additional savings, which includes work to be able to identify and release an additional 1.5 million of reserves, which are no longer required for their original purposes. Okay, so as such, my recommendation is for Cabinet to note the forecast revenue monitoring position at period 5 and to apply the reserves that are no longer required for their original purposes to offset the in-year overspend. And that counts for £1.5 million. Over to you, my colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Shea. Just before we open it to questions, I'd just like to emphasise Appendix 1, I think it says Table 1, but it says, in understanding the cost increases we've got this year, the following examples might be helpful. The Life Centre has additional costs of £0.575 million. Street lighting costs have increased by £0.89 million. And the 2 crematoria have increased costs of £0.345 million. And if you go to paragraph 6, the Council's Children, Young People and Families Director is currently facing additional gross costs of £3.8 million regarding specialist placements for vulnerable children and other demand pressures, part of a national trend. I think what that emphasises is many things, but 2 things in particular. I mean, one is that we are seeing massive soaring costs due to the international financial crisis, just like people are seeing when they're going to fuel their vehicles or fuel their homes. We are experiencing the same, and it's taxpayers' money. It's not our money to sort of dish out as we see fit. I think, you know, the second thing is, this is the real world, you know, here in Plymouth. This is not some abstract civil service department that's based 200 or 300 miles away, full of sort of non-identikit civil servants that the media like to portray. This is Plymouth. It's our local workers, it's our local people using these things. And we have to keep these services running. And if we don't keep them running, then sometimes we might have to pause some services somewhere within the 300 services that we deliver. But no one comes into politics to pause anything or stop anything unless it's a bad thing. So, but we do have a legal duty to deliver a balanced budget, and we also have a moral duty to deliver financial responsibility, because it's public money, it's not our personal money, and we will leave no stone unturned in delivering on those commitments. But I'd like to say a massive thank you actually to all the staff so far that have been through layers of spreadsheets that have handled probably thousands of requests from elected members, and we're still not there yet. You know, we're going to get all of the potential options together, and now we know what the government's position is. We're possibly in a slightly stronger position than we thought we were, you know, a few weeks ago, but we'll get all that together towards the end of the month, and then obviously open it up to consultation. But just to reassure people that we absolutely are looking at all options because we have a legal responsibility to do so, and that is as it is. But thanks to everyone, including elected members, for their patience and resilience in going through this process with us. So thank you. I think we're just noting the report, aren't we, Councillor Shea? So we need to note two things here. The forecast revenue monitoring position at period 5. So we'll note that. Oh, sorry, question, Councillor Mahoney. Oh.
I wouldn't mind some clarification on what the 1.585 million that was in reserves for other purposes. I'd be interested to know what other purposes it hasn't been required for, if that's possible. Thanks.
I've got the figures for that, David. I'll take that. Okay, we sit there and we have identified additional reserves and savings. Firstly, within customer and corporate services of £250,000. We then move over to the People Directorate. There's a £700,000 saving there that's been achieved. Within Place Directorate, there's a £333,000 saving. Lack of need for the resources that are currently earmarked. And finally, in corporate accounting and council-wide items, there's another £250,000 savings there. If I could just carry on from that, these kind of figures will continue throughout the whole of the process as we progress through the year, dependent upon events happening or not necessarily happening. But obviously our main aim is to maintain our services as best we possibly can and not to have any effect outside of the council budgets themselves, so that the people, the general public, don't see any change.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mahoney. Okay, so I got through the first part, but the second part is to apply reserves that are no longer needed for their original purposes to offset those in the year overspend 1.585 million. So we are noting those two things. Colleagues, are we happy to note those? Thank you all. Yeah. Okay. Before we shut our folders, I'd just like to say a big thank you, it's a shame, I think it's dropped off the call, to Craig McCardle. So Craig will be sorely missed as our Strategic Director for People, and I'd like to formally thank him from Cabinet for his massive contribution to Plymouth over 19 years. I think all of us knew Craig and had worked sort of first hand with him, and some of us not elected long in Plymouth, but massively impressed by the contribution and the service that he gave. And it's fair to say that he shaped those areas of services in quite a profound way that we will massively, massively miss. So a big thank you to him. If we can send a letter that emphasises the sentiments of the Cabinet Committee, I'd be most appreciative. Anyone else want to say anything? Thank you. In that case,